essentially is to blame yourself, your community, your family members for not overcoming, say, slavery or segregation or police terror or mass incarceration fast enough. Yeah? And so there's really no other option. You either blame you or you understand the context that created the situation that we're currently in. I think it's vitally important what these guys are doing for you today, because if you don't understand the hole we've been dug in and who got us there and how we got here, then you're going to blame your family members and yourselves unnecessarily.
Talk about how we got there.
How we got here. So, first people of African ancestry. Black people were here before the British, right? Black people were here during the Spanish in the 1560s. An enslaved man named Esteban helped the Spanish find what's now Florida all the way across the I-10 corridor to California, Texas, Louisiana, etc. But the first people of African ancestry from the British came here in 1619. And there were 20 of them brought in chains. 399 years consecutively, black people have been in this country, right? Can you think of a year in 399 without racism? I challenge you to find 1 year out of 399 without racism. Now, racism is fluid, it changes, it's not the same. Slavery racism is different than segregation racism, right? Which is different than mass incarceration racism, but it's still what? Racism. It's still a form of racial discrimination, right? So from 1619 to 1865, when the 13th Amendment passed and black people were freed everywhere, it's 246 years. 246 years of not being able to own your body, not being able to own your children or control or keep safe your kids, your wife, nothing. Anything you produced was for somebody else. Your body was for somebody else, to be leveraged, to be used for equity, sold at the discretion of the owner, etc. Since 1865, 2018 is 153 years. So as of this year, black people have been enslaved for 93 years longer than we've been free.
Wow. Say that one more time.
So as of 2018, African Americans have been enslaved for 93 years longer than we've been free.
Dang. Wow.
Which essentially means it won't be until the year 2111 that black people will have been as free as they've been enslaved. So that means something like reading and writing is new to us. Something like owning property, creating wealth, getting an education, right? Getting married,
right?
Protecting your children, very new to us as a community. And I would make the case that you're not free in a democracy if you can't vote.
Right.
And black people don't get the right to vote in this country until the Voting Rights Act everywhere, uninterrupted, Voting Rights Act of 1965. It's a signature civil rights achievement, right? That's 346 years of either no freedom or limited freedom in a democracy. So full freedom in a democracy, if you articulate voting as an example, started around 1965. So you're talking about 53 years essentially of what? Basic freedom in a democracy. 2 generations. It's new, man. And if 1965 is the starting year of basic freedom in a democracy, and you add 346 years to that, from 1619 to 1965, you get the year 2311 as the baseline period of freedom in a democracy for black people. And we're in 2018. Now, if you add wealth,
that's a whole nother.
That's a whole different tier. But if you add wealth as say a baseline in a capitalist society, come on, man. The struggle is still real, right? And that break-even period is even further away. I'll give you one example. I'm reading a book. I was talking to Brother Lynn over here about this book. reading a book called The Color of Money. It looks at black banking and the wealth gap, racial wealth gap. And when black people were emancipated in 1865, we owned as a percentage of the wealth in this country 0.5% of the national wealth.
1865.
1865. 0.5, half of a percent of the national wealth. 150 years later, we own 1% of the national wealth. Huh? So in 150 years, black people amassed half of a percent of the national wealth in the country. Yet, we spend over $1 trillion every year buying stuff we can't afford to impress people we don't like.
Right.
And buy things essentially we don't need.
Right.
Right? Now, if it takes 150 years to get a half of a percent of the nation's wealth, what percentage of black people are we in the country? As a community, we're about 12% of the population in the country. Yeah? If we have 1% of the wealth now, 150 years after slavery, and it takes us half of a percent, 150 years to get another half of a percent, it'll be 3,300 years at that rate of growth. So black people have as much wealth as we are represented in the population. It'll be the year 5318.
Wow.
Y'all don't hear me.
Man, that's crazy.
And so,
That's crazy.
what I
That's
would
crazy.
charge you guys with, and I think you guys, it's important to think about this thing generationally, because it's taken us years and years and centuries to get in the hole we're currently in. Not only do you need to be thinking about what you're going to do now that will impact the way you will be in, say, 60 or 70 years old, when you get 60, 70 years old, you need to be thinking about how your decisions today will influence the next 2, 3, 4, 5 generations of people you may never meet.
Come on now.
Yeah? Because essentially, you guys right now are the culmination of a 20 generation long struggle for freedom in this country. Everybody, all your ancestors, all your elders have sacrificed to get you right here, and they have given everything they can to get you to the pinnacle that you're at now.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
the way you pay them back is to pay it forward and thinking about yourself as a change agent for the next 4, 5, 6 generations. It's important, whether that's an educational agent, a financial agent, right? Combination thereof, getting your families right, et cetera, communities right. So yeah, man, it's important. Understanding where we came from is vitally important, because otherwise, you may get stressed out. I don't want to read today. I'm tired. I'm not thinking about studying today. I'm not thinking about what I got to do in the classroom today. When you realize it's bigger than you.
Yeah.
It is.
Generations have sacrificed to get you here.
Yeah.
And generations that you have never met are waiting for you to be great, so that they can have a better life and a better lifestyle and a better future. 3, 4, 5 generations, your impact will have easily. Right?
Wow.
Were you guys influenced by your grandparents? Everybody was, right? Grandparents helped us out a lot. Eventually, you're going to be grandparents and ancestors. And you're going to be evaluated essentially based on what you do right now that will influence generations yet to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important, man. Thinking about these things generationally helps a lot. I never lack motivation, because I see myself as a continuum of struggle. Right? I'm the conduit. I got kids, so I'm the linchpin between the past and the future.
Can you sort of give your journey, talk a little bit about your journey and grade school, high school, college, and how you got to where you are?
Okay, he wanted me to tell y'all about my little journey to get to where I am now. I didn't have a gentleman's academy in where I went to high school. My folks, I went to a predominantly white high school in Long Island. I was basically diversity. It was me.
You were
and
the
couple,
diversity.
Yeah, a couple of biracial kids. So I was the blackest and the poorest in my high school by far. It wasn't close. And so, 2nd grade, they wanted to test me for a learning disability.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now I got a PhD, but they wanted to test me for a learning disability. In 3rd grade, I got called the N-word a couple times. I didn't know what it meant. Asked my mom, what's the N-word? She told me. I said, okay. He called me again, it's gonna be some furniture movement. And he did, and we fought. And so eventually, every time he said the N-word, I would hit him. Bow, bow. So I chased to the principal's office. I got caught by the principal in 3rd grade. I'm about to beat this white boy up and called me the N-word. Rather than address the racism, he said I had an anger problem. Took me to a counselor who asked me in counseling therapy, are you really upset because my mom and dad were married when they got married, separated when I was 3, divorced when I was 12. So in elementary school, my pops wasn't around. So they asked me, are you really mad because your mom is bringing home a whole bunch of dudes? So they essentially called my mom a hoe, essentially. And that was why I was really mad, not racism, that. So by 3rd, 4th grade, I was like, you know what, man, this school thing is whack. I'm not a big fan. They're racist. The teachers are racist. The administrators are racist. The counselors are racist. So the only thing that kept me in school, frankly, was sports. Football, basketball, track. I remember at 15, I told my mom I was going to drop out of high school. God bless her. My mom said to me, she said, okay, my job is to raise you and to take care of you as long as you're in school. The minute you're not in school, you got to pay half the rent. So this is back in Long Island, New York. So what's half the rent? She said $500.
Man.
Now at the time, $500 is a lot of money now. At the time, minimum wage was $3.25.
Wow.
$3.25. So I had to do a whole lot of damn work to get $500, and I was smart enough to be like, okay, I'm not gonna get all the $3.25. So I'm probably, let's say I get $2.75 an hour. I'm a clear after taxes.
Right.
So I started doing the math. How many hours would I have to work to get to $500? I'm gonna need to get a car, need to get some gas, need to get some clothes. You know, Mom, I'm gonna ride this thing out a little bit longer. And she kept telling me that I'd be better in college than I was in high school, because in high school, it's more about rote memorization and regurgitation. In college, it's about what? Thinking, critical thinking. You get embraced for that. And so by the time I got to college and found I could basically study what I had lived and thought about all the time as a profession, I spent most of my high school years trying to convince white people that I saw racism. And so I was like, you mean I get to study that for like, I can make a profession out of that? Yeah, that's it. And so once I hit college and figured out that I could study something I love and essentially get paid to do it, man, I've kind of been doing really well since. GPA exploded. But when I graduated from high school, there were 272 students. There were only 40 that had a worse GPA than I did. My GPA was so whack in high school, was so bad in high school, that the only thing that got me above the 70 range was gym, choir, art. I mean, the struggle was real. Because everything that I read in high school really didn't reflect me. Shakespeare, you know what I mean? Even when we got music, black people weren't into music. I was like, damn, we created every American musical genre. Are we reading about Beethoven? Mozart? And damn, that dude with a powder wig. So I wasn't a big fan of what we were reading. So yeah, the struggle was real. But the fact that you guys have something like this is amazing. Because I had to basically find positive black men, I had to go look back historically. I didn't have them in my neighborhood. My granddad was an example for me. I didn't have access. I didn't have my dad wasn't a big role model. I didn't have any black people in my community. This was mostly a white community. So I started going backwards, and I was like, man, if I can't find them today, I'm sure we've done something in the past to get us here. And I can start looking backwards and finding role models.
Right.
Yeah.
Man.